Welcome to the Painting of the Week podcast, where we look at some of the most significant paintings throughout history. Introducing your hosts, Phil Grabsky and Laura Bentham.
Welcome to this week's Painting of the Week. And, I suppose they're always good, aren't they? But I hope. But this is a really interesting painting called, the English is often translated, it's often translated in English to The Promenades of Euclid. In French, because René Magritte spoke French, Les Promenades d'Euclid. I guess you could translate that as The Walks of Euclid. I have seen it also called Euclid's Walk. If you go to our website, as ever, seventh-art.com, and bring up the painting, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you've got the painting in front of you, then you'll see what Laura and I are about to talk about. Let's have a look at the picture. Laura, what do you think of the Promenades of Euclid? And we'll talk about Euclid and who Magritte is and where this is depicting in a second. But first impressions of the painting.
Oh, Phil. This week, I feel like I've fallen into a complete unknown territory here, and I need someone to pick me out and scatter me back into the land of the living. Because I often think of us two standing in an actual, in a museum, and if anyone actually listened to our conversations about these paintings,
Would they tut?
They would. I think they would at me. But when I looked at it first of all, I was like, oh, okay. In actual fact, I didn't even look that closely because initially, I don't know if anyone else does this. I'm sure they do. You just think, oh, there's two towers.
Yeah.
Do you do that? Do you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, then obviously I'm like, okay, well, where's Euclid? I don't know where Euclid is.
Yeah.
Did you do that? No, obviously not. So I'm just like, okay, where's Euclid? I don't know where that is. Interesting. And then, of course, then I'm in the land of the ancient Greek mathematician, and I'm just like, oh, okay. I really don't know whether I even went to school. I'm starting to despair. So, initially...
Which is probably not Magritte's. I don't think Magritte is trying to make anyone feel foolish.
No, actually, after I've read a bit about him, I think, I often say this, I think we'd quite get on.
Yeah.
Because he'd think, oh, well, Laura's not going to make much of this one. And then after a while, I'm like, oh, this is good. This is something.
Let's just say a little bit about Magritte.
Yes.
So for people who don't know Magritte, you might well know some of his pictures. So, famous picture of the bowler hat. Mm-hmm. It is said that Apple's logo is based on a painting by Magritte of an apple.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If you go online and look at Magritte's images, there probably will be some that you recognise.
Yeah, no, I did know the bowler hat.
And of course,
know that.
we're sitting in your living room where you have a picture on the wall of two men in bowler hats.
Yeah, the Thompson twins.
The Thompson twins. So, maybe there's
something.
And Tintin is Belgian, right?
Yes.
So, there could be some... So, anyway, René Magritte he was a Belgian artist, and 1898, 1967. Mm-hmm. So he's only been dead 33, what's that? Anyway, under 60 years.
It's a hot day.
And he's one of these people that he's provocative, he's funny, he's probably been highly influential on, say, advertising images. And I think you're absolutely right. This particular picture... Now, this was suggested for us to talk about. I didn't know it. And I did exactly the same thing. When I looked at it, I thought, it's a double-towered...
Oh, I feel so much better now.
Yeah, no, I mean, you do. Now,
okay, good.
Now, of course, you know that the cone on the right is a road.
Yes.
Then it seems, well, how could I have mistaken that for a tower? But actually, the first time I looked at it, I thought, he's looking out the window at two towers of a castle, and... knowing he's Belgian, I just kind of made the assumption that he lived in Brussels, and this is but of course the thing with him is what he's constantly challenging you with is what is reality and what is not reality. So another famous painting of his is of a pipe.
Oh, yes.
And it's a fine rendition of a pipe, but underneath it he's written in French, "This is not a pipe." Mm-hmm. And when somebody challenged him on that and said, "Well, it is a pipe," he said, "Well, try stuffing it full of tobacco then."
This is it. This is where I am now. So my head's all over the place.
Well, he's just challenging you to think about what is real and what's not real. Now, he's called a surrealist. And now for me, surrealism I often associate with people like Dali and, Melting Clocks and some of the films they do which are often renditions of dreams or dreamlike. There is a sense, of course, in which Magritte is a surrealist in that they're not real. They're not trying to depict reality. But I don't think he was actually trying to depict his dreams either. I think he's playing. He's having fun. He's playing with what is and what isn't. So if we just take a closer look at this particular picture, if you have a look at it, we're in a room. There's no room furniture. It's just curtains, heavy curtains, and an easel. And even the easel is strange because you've only really got the bottom part of the easel. You can't see the rest of it, except the very top. Actually, maybe that is.
Yeah, here we go then.
The easel. The easel's at a slight angle to the back wall, which I don't think is reflected in the bottom line of the painting. But anyway, the point being, if you look carefully, of course, what you actually have there is a painting of a scene in front of what looks like the actual scene. So the roofs match, and the horizon matches. Now, what we don't know is behind that painting, behind that canvas, is it exactly that? Or has he made that up?
Exactly. We
We can't tell.
I mean, there could be the window cleaner behind there with his head.
His Diet Coke. Other soft drinks are available. I mean, the likelihood is that the houses are right. I mean, I would imagine. So the question would be whether there's actually a tower behind there or not, or whether there's actually a road like that or not. If he was actually, what he's saying to you is if he was actually depicting that scene, well, you wouldn't have the canvas in front of it because you'd have to keep peering round to see the scene. So the likelihood is that if we're to imagine a painter actually painting this, the likelihood is that he's just following the lines of the horizon, following the lines of the houses and putting in whatever he likes. And he's painting two cones. Now in the road, which is a very odd road because
it is odd.
There's nothing there. There's no traffic except for two people, but there's no traffic. There's no pavements. I mean, there's nothing. It's just absolute mirror of the cone, except that the shadow on the side of the left-hand castle cone turret is on the right-hand side, and on the road side, the shadow's on the left. So you're also confused by that because that doesn't make any sense either.
So does he want us to be confused to start with then?
Yeah.
Initially, he wants everyone to think there are two towers.
I think so. I think so. And then he's got two people walking. So, Euclid.
Yeah.
And again, he's just mucking about, really. But Euclid is known as the father of geometry. He lived in Alexandria in, the 3rd century BC. So a little bit before the Romans have arrived. So part of ancient Egypt at this point.
So the father of geometry, flat surfaces.
Father of geometry, father of mathematics. I don't know it well enough to know exactly the details, but it's said that all mathematics and geometry is influenced by him subsequently. So maybe maybe the suggestion is he's having a walk with somebody. Maybe that's supposed to be him walking down, and if there's geometry here, then there's obviously the triangle, there's the circle, there are rectangles, there are squares.
But do you think it also is that outside the window would be 3-dimensional. So the flat surface then of the painting, is that where he's then saying, okay, this is where Euclid comes in?
Yeah, so maybe...
Because I went a little bit further with that, with Euclidean geometry, and then I got to stuff I couldn't understand. I thought, oh, this is good, because Phil's going to know this, the cone of vision or something, and I've got all this stuff about lines and 60 degrees and stuff. I was like, oh, I don't think I know this, but I assumed you might know because of photography and filming.
Well, that's quite interesting, because I hadn't made that connection. But if you examine the eye, then there is a cone of vision. If you look at a cross-section of how an eye works, it probably is that kind of cone-shaped, although on a horizontal. Maybe he's making reference to that. I mean, the person that's walking with Euclid is presumably him.
Right.
And the suggestion perhaps is that he is... If the more you look at this picture, the more you realise it's just a montage. No, that's not quite the right word, but it's a selection of angles and shapes and curves and straight lines and the geometry is within the picture.
I never even thought the two of them would be in them two walking. No, not in a million years did I think that.
Well,
so there we are.
I mean, I don't know. He might just have done that for scale. In fact, actually, the scale isn't right, because, to be honest, those two individuals look to me like they're like 8 foot tall. If
Here we go.
So
man in a boat.
So I wonder why he's even put them there at all, really. Man in a boat. Yeah.
What was our Mary Cassatt one, wasn't it? What was that one? We kept on seeing Aladdin and stuff like that in the boat.
Yeah, what was that?
I thought that was...
Wasn't it Manet?
No, I thought that was...
Is it Mary Cassatt?
I thought so. Oh, no, don't. Come on, let's...
Can't remember.
But anyway, yeah.
We just had our first screening of the Mary Cassatt film.
And how did that go?
Sold out.
Oh,
it was great.
It was really good.
Yeah, it was very well received.
Oh, good. Lovely. Well, that was that was handy. I'm sure we did. I'm sure we got stuck on her painting, and there's people in there that we didn't see. But this is another one now. I just didn't even think that he would actually be in here. But anyway,
I mean, he's a very interesting character, and if I were to make a film about Magritte, and there's no plans to do so, then you'd have to look into his background. And it is said that the fact that his mother killed herself affected him deeply, understandably.
Oh yeah.
And that emerged in his paintings during his life.
And they were saying the rumours being that because she drowned herself in a river, and as she came out, there was maybe her nightdress or a cloth across her face. Hence the fact that quite a lot of his paintings have faces that are covered, things like that. I mean, it's
plausible. I mean, we don't know, of course, but it's plausible.
I must admit, initially, this painting, I was like, Then you start looking at other pieces of his work, and it's like, oh, yeah, I really love it. I think it's fascinating. And when you get to his bowler hat, I can't remember the name of that one. What's the man? It's not Man in a Hat, is it? What's the one where he...
Man in a bowler hat?
Man in a bowler. I can't remember. I've got it written down. I've got it written down somewhere. Oh, Son of Man. That's that.
Okay.
That then you're starting to get the emotion because the apple is on his face. Then it's that conflict that we as humans want to know what is behind that apple. So, same as that. Painting. I'm not convinced that was the scene, like you say. He's got to keep peering round. But no one will ever know. So if we were in the exhibition, we would just be standing here for hours, Phil.
It's actually very clever, isn't it? Because
it's really clever.
if that canvas was facing us straight on, you wouldn't have that left-hand edge, would you?
No.
Which is the side of the canvas, which distinguishes between the canvas, the unreal, and the scene that he can see, which plausibly one could call the real. So I guess that's why the easel has to be at a slight angle like that.
But if we were going around an exhibition of his, we would be at a painting for ages, wouldn't we, each one of us, because we're wanting to always know what is behind.
Yeah.
Because we're so intrigued.
But isn't that the sign of a great painter? If if he or she has all these multiple layers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why Mary Cassatt is actually so interesting, because if you don't pay attention, you think it's just mothers and babies.
Yes.
And I'm not so interested in that. Actually, the more you look at it, the more you realise, no, it's much more than that.
Mm.
You know, that baby that's plucking an apple, it's not just hungry, it's actually the tree of knowledge, and she's making a point. Or that big sunflower on the woman's blouse, it's not just a flower just for decoration, it's actually making a statement about the suffragette movement in the United States at the beginning of the 20th century. I mean, again, you can't understand Magritte without understanding 1910, 1920, Belgium to some extent, but Paris. So much going on, and you've got these surrealists really pushing the boat out, really experimenting and doing things which are totally radical.
Yeah.
So he hooks up with, you were mentioning before we started, André Breton.
Oh yes, they weren't friends. I think they tolerated each other, but mainly because I read about this. Actually, it was quite interesting that the French surrealists thought that he was a little bit kind of straight-laced, not very extravagant. And for them, they always wanted to be, really out there. And he kind of got married to one of his childhood sweethearts, and he didn't really do anything sort of too dramatic. So they did get on. But then that brings us on then to, with André Breton. He sort of was the forefront of it all. And then he got involved with Frida Kahlo, who, one of her quotes is that she never wanted to be classed as a surrealist.
I think she was misunderstood at times as being a surrealist. And what was the quote you had about her? It was,
I have it all written down, of course, Phil, in about a zillion of my notes, but now I've lost it.
It was a very good quote.
It was a great quote.
For those that don't know Frida Kahlo, and it's on the back here. Would thoroughly recommend having a watch of our film about Frida Kahlo.
That's right. They thought I was a surrealist, but I wasn't. I never painted dreams. Yeah. I painted my own reality.
Yeah.
Well, that's for sure. Her paintings.
Yeah.
But then in a way, Magritte painted his a little bit with all the cloths over, a lot of the cloths and the fact that his faces were always slightly covered.
A surrealist would sometimes say that there is no meaning in what I'm just, Sometimes when people try to analyse some of the films, then they would say, well, there's no meaning in there. You make your own meaning up. But I think that you can probably still find meaning even in the random choice of images that are within a painting. But someone like Frida Kahlo would say, there's no accidents in my painting.
No.
Everything is there for a reason, and it's all about my reality, my biography. To me, she is the most, more than any other painter, her self-portraits, as I've mentioned once before, are from the neck down. So the face doesn't change so much, but all the narrative is below the neck.
Yeah.
And she's quite open in a way that really is unprecedented.
But I think I'd really like to go to and see Magritte as an exhibition.
Yeah.
Because I feel that if we were standing there, I could actually say anything I wanted. And then be like, oh, yeah. Laura knows what she's talking about today.
Well, you used to know, Laura. But I think also with Magritte, I think that if the exhibition was chronological, and sometimes curators are a bit afraid of doing they think, it's dull to do chronological, everyone does chronological.
Oh, okay.
Often, it's actually the best way to do it, because an artist does develop chronologically. And historical events happen chronologically, so his art will be influenced by the First World War, by a depressed and tumultuous Europe in the 20s, by the Second World War. I think it'd be really interesting to see how his artworks develop over time. But going back to his personality, another film I'd recommend people watch is our film on Hieronymus Bosch. Now, Bosch's paintings are really out there.
Yeah.
Again, I wouldn't call them... they're not real. They are they're above reality, so surreal if you like. But actually, again, there's meaning in all these terribly strange animals and objects and events that are happening within the paintings. I mean, he is really, really out there, extraordinary. But as an individual, as far as we can tell, he was quite straight-laced. He was quite conservative, quite religious.
Right.
And our understanding of Magritte is that, as you said, you know, he did marry quite young, or relatively young, 24, 23, 24. He had a couple of hiccups along the way, but stayed with his wife. But again, you know, wears the bowler hat.
Yeah.
He's a bit like, you know, Gilbert and George, always wearing their suits.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, some artists are just, you know, well-dressed, well-mannered, and yet their painting can be absolute flights of fancy.
I think you'd have fun though, wouldn't you? So if you went round and saw, even with this one, it is fun.
Yeah.
But me and you were like, oh well, you know, there could be a window cleaner there or something else. And whereas with somebody like, I think I was saying about Hopper with Nighthawks, everything is actually there. Or you're saying about Bosch, I'd have to really clue myself up on those paintings because there's major stories behind those. Whereas with this painting, is he just having a little bit of fun with us? I mean, I had to find out about, you know, Euclidean geometry. Well, I didn't expect that. But the rest of it, and even then I'm like, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because if it's not behind that painting, he could have painted over. It's actually quite fun that he didn't.
Well,
I wonder if he did some sketches where he did do some that he did actually paint something completely random instead of painting those towers.
That's what he's asking.
The tower.
That's what he's asking, isn't he? About and also, you know, look at those curtains. It's like a theatrical stage. So it's like the curtains have been drawn back, and it could be, you know, the canvas could be the backdrop to a stage, you know, stage show.
Yeah.
So he's saying, well, you know, for all we know, what's on the canvas is real, and what's around the canvas, he could have made up. Because don't forget, we're looking at a painting. So it is quite
100%.
He said he says that people often said to him, you know, what do these pictures mean? And he would sometimes reply, it doesn't mean anything. You know, it's unknowable. I think that's probably a bit provocative. I think there is meaning there, whether it's biographical or a meaning that he's bringing to it because he wants to make a point.
But it's lovely that it was giving us all those questions, because so many artists paint out of a window. I mean, there must be absolutely hundreds. But with this painting, and he did do a couple of others, didn't he, with the canvases, we are just questioning the whole thing. We're so intrigued as to know, and the fact that we don't know where that scene is, he gave it a name of the ancient, you know, Greek mathematician. That sort of throws you completely. It's not like you can even go and find that window and have a look. Whereas a lot of the other works, you could say, oh, well, this is the house that they lived in, and this is the painting. And
it's a good point, actually. Oh, I mean, if that were Brussels, you'd imagine that, and you know, if a tower like that existed, and it looks like it's in a park or to the side of a park with a, you know, very defined road. I mean, you think people would have found it. I mean, I haven't come across that.
No. Well, I haven't, obviously.
It is unlikely, of course, that there would be a building this high. I mean, this building's higher than the tower. That's pretty unlikely.
Oh, well, that's a point.
I mean, that makes no sense, does it?
No. Not at all.
I mean, this is almost another... Forget the tower. If you look at the buildings across the way, it's almost like this is another 3 or 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 stories higher.
Right, yeah.
Or we're on the top of a bluff. But then it seems like a very unlikely type of window.
That for sure now. Now you've mentioned the window.
And look at those windows over there too. They're all rectangles. This has a curve to the top of it.
The window looks completely wrong now.
Yeah.
So now you said that.
The whole thing's wrong, isn't it? But isn't that great? This is a white canvas.
Yes.
Stretched on a few bits of board, and with a brush and some, oils, he's created something which is multi-layered, confrontational, funny.
Yes, full of mystery.
Yeah,
I mean, just and we could I wonder how long people do spend in front of this painting discussing, or all of his paintings.
Yeah.
Then it could be that when you go and see one of his exhibitions, it is one of the longest trips around.
Yes. Well, I hope they do that rather than go, don't understand that, and move on.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
And that's what as ever, that's what we're encouraging people to do, is just have a look. There aren't any necessarily right or wrong answers. I'd say you've done, I can see from your super notes. Anything else you think we should point out?
I just get right into it always, Phil. I said to you, because I have so many notes that I then can't find what I've read or learned.
We'll have a little scan.
No, I can't, because I've got so many. And I said to you, I'm going to really try and keep it to 3 every time I come.
Oh, that's great.
But now I've got my multicoloured pens and everything else. But I just think he was just quite fun.
Yeah.
Whether he would agree with me or not, I don't know. But he was obviously to stand there and think, okay, what am I going to paint today? And where am I going to take everybody?
I'll tell you what is weird about this painting. It's in Minneapolis.
Yes.
And when I last checked, it's not on view.
Oh.
And I find that's odd. A painting like this isn't on display. So I hope in Minneapolis they might change their mind if they ever... We'll contact them and say, we've just done a podcast about your painting.
Yeah.
Expect coach loads
of people.
Of pensioners.
Yeah.
and others.
And other age groups.
And other age groups do listen to our podcast.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And
that's funny though, isn't it? Because you think
get it on display.
They would have
well,
that.
that's the problem with these museums and galleries. Sometimes they have so many paintings that they just can't display them all. I mean, there could be thousands in store.
I'm being a bit judgy here, but I wouldn't have expected in Minneapolis that they would have had. Maybe I need to go there.
That's a bit judgy.
There's another place we've got to go then, Phil.
I mean, the American cities have the most
amazing... You would think if you had a Magritte that you would have that out.
Yeah, I know. Maybe it's a bit confusing. Maybe they've got too many Magrittes. I don't know.
And you've not been to Minneapolis?
I've only flown through. What is the nickname for Minneapolis?
I don't know.
The Big Apple. Isn't it the Big Apple? That's New York.
That's New York. New York.
Something to do with Minneapolis.
What, is an apple?
Isn't it?
No, the Big Apple's New York.
Yeah, that's New York, yeah, okay.
But, here we go, Phil. You almost put me on the spot.
Look at your notes.
There's nothing on my notes about the name of the
I'm
nickname
looking that up. I'm looking that up before we finish. I'm sure there's something to do with...
Another apple. In which case, they should definitely have the Magritte out.
Oh no.
And I bet they've got loads of...
City of Lakes, Mill City, Twin Cities.
Well, there you go.
Oh, the Mini Apple.
Oh.
Well, Minneapolis, the Mini Apple. I knew there's something to do with an apple.
Well, there we go.
So maybe...
I would absolutely love to go to an exhibition of his.
Yeah, me too.
And I think it would take a bit of time to get round.
Have you
done one of your films at all on surrealism? Or a surrealist artist?
No, we're looking at Dali, but then another film was made and we decided not to pursue ours. But look, I bet no one's made the connection before between Magritte, the importance of apples in his paintings, and the fact that this painting is in Minneapolis, which has the nickname Mini Apple. There's got to be a Christmas quiz question there somewhere.
Oh, yes, let's get that straight.
Only you and I will know the answer to.
Which means we've got to be together on Christmas Day.
Well, that'd be no hardship.
Podcast.
As long as you guys were cooking, it'd be fantastic.
Well, Matt be cooking, of course.
Right,
we're done.
That's it. Enjoy this painting. Do check out, for example, our films on Frida Kahlo and on Hieronymus Bosch.
Mary
Cassatt, although that's not out for a little while yet.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Go to seventh-art.com. Plenty more there. And we'll be back with our next painting of the week soon. Cheerio. Hi. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Painting of the Week. This this is season 3 of the podcast. So I would thoroughly recommend, if you would go to have a listen at season 1 and season 2, because there's another 20 in each. Obviously, don't listen to them all. You'll be absolutely sick to death of Laura and I. But there's some absolutely beautiful paintings that we talk about, which are worth looking at, either, as you know, via the 7th-art.com website, or you can actually also watch them on YouTube, where you can hear the podcast and see the painting. So, enjoy.
Thank you for listening to the Painting of the Week podcast. For more information, please visit our website at 7th-art.com or contact us by emailing info@7th-art.com. See you next time.